Hello everyone, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be breaking down GBP, JPY, the Nasdaq and the S&P 500. So a lot has been going on, especially with the Bank of England, with the Japanese yen, Bank of Japan, the Bank of England holding the rates at 4% with two voting for an increase cut to 3.75%, right? We've seen the Bank of Japan's inflation come out lower than expected, right? We know that the Bank of Japan want to raise their interest rates over time. Now, the fact that inflation is slowing down a lot faster than expected, this can mean that interest rates are raised will be slowed down. The Bank of Japan will be less aggressive in raising their interest rates. Now, what does that mean? Now, when you raise your interest rates, you usually raise it to slow down inflation, right? Slow down inflation. But the fact that it's slowing down a lot faster than expected could mean that the Bank of Japan is going to take a more cautious approach. So that's if you didn't understand why, right? With the Bank of England, we can see that the labor market is not so strong, right? So they need to now think about high inflation and not very strong labor market. So if they're gonna lower their interest rates, of course that's gonna boost growth and improve employment because the cost of borrowing will fall, right? Businesses will have more money to invest, more money to pay workers and hire workers as well, and expand and invest, which can increase employment and boost growth, right? But at the same time, lowering inflation can mean that there's too much demand, too much consumption, which can lead to very high inflation. So the Bank of England need to keep this under control. Now, if speculators think that the Bank of England is struggling and cannot really keep this under control and are making decisions, very rash decisions, and don't have inflation and growth under control, this can cause the GBP, the pound, to fall, right? And we can see GBP, JPY fall, GBP, USD fall as well. Now that's on the fundamental side of everything. Let's get to the technical side and go to the charts. So what I'm going to do is get my camera and I will show you my computer. Let's go. Let's look at the weekly time frame. We can clearly see that we had this 200 psychological level which has been respected on the weekly time frame, right? We could not break it here, we could not break it on this week. Then we had an overlap rejection, leaving a strong rejection to the upside. So it's clear as day that the 200 psychological level is being respected, right? Now, based off this, we need to go down on the lower time frames to see what has happened. Has there been a break of structure on the daily time frame? Has there been a break of structure on the 4-hour time frame? If that's the case, then maybe we can start looking for some sells back down into this weekly support. If we look at the daily time frame, you can clearly see that we had this bullish variation and we were stepping up, stepping up, stepping up. We we left a nice little wick to the upside on the daily time frame, and then what did we do? Sellers came into play and we saw GBP, JPY absolutely melt, right, with a strong bearish engulfing candle taking out the previous higher low. We were forming higher highs and higher lows, right? And then what happened? We broke structure to form a lower low. So the fact that we're respecting the psychological level on the weekly time frame had a good rejection of this resistance. Now on the daily, we can see the strong bearish engulfing and breaking structure to the for the bearish trend, right? We need to now go on the 4-hour time frame. I just want you to keep in mind this daily area of bodies of support which we just broke, right? Now if we go on the 4-hour time frame, can we see a break of structure? Yes, we can, right? We had this higher low, higher high, break of structure. So now we're waiting for this pullback to potentially sell. Now as mentioned, this ray is that daily ray. I'm expecting price to pull back into these bodies, or even if I just zoom out a little bit, into this resistance level, right, for sells down into maybe this 4-hour support of 199 or this weekly support of 198.234. Now that's my bias on GBP, JPY. Of course, if we break above this zone and retest and maintain above that zone, then I would start looking for some buys and shift my perspective on GBP, JPY. As you can see, it's very important that you have a if and potentially and different type of vocabulary rather than saying this will happen or that will happen. No, it's if this happens, I will do this. If that happens, I will do that. Because you have to remember the markets are random. Anything can happen. Yes, you have seen patterns played themselves over and over again, but every pattern is unique in itself in that period of time. When you have that sort of mentality, you will not have an expectation of the market on that single trade, right? It's not about being wrong on that single trade. That's how a lot of traders lose and become mentally fragile and very emotional and go through a lot of emotional pain, because they put so much emphasis on that one trade and so much expectation on that pattern that is being formed now, thinking that the market did it before so it will do it again. That is not true. Yes, patterns repeat themselves, but every moment in the market is unique. When you shift your perspective and don't have that expectation of the market for it to do that, to do what you think it should do, your mindset would be a lot more clearer, and you will come to the markets with a better mentality and make less mental errors. So that's that. So let's go back to the Nasdaq and S&P 500 just to quickly break down what I think will happen next. But as we know, it's been bullish as hell. If you go on the weekly, if you go on the daily, it's been very bullish. The stocks have been going very high, right? It's been bullish. So I'm only looking for buys. I am not looking for counter trend trades, because the probabilities are stacked against me. Remember, there's a saying, I know it's cliche, but there's a saying, the trend is your friend. So it is your friend. You don't need to go against it. You don't need to go against the army of buyers. Think of it as an army of buyers going in one direction and you're a seller going against it. The probability is not in your favor. You can see, this is the weekly time frame. The weekly is clearly bullish. The daily is clearly bullish. The 4-hour is clearly bullish. Now, we have seen a bullish engulfing and price may come back above this previous area of resistance, which was broken, right? So I see this as an overlap rejection. As long as price can retrace back into this level and maintain above this level, you can look for buys back into 6672 or beyond. That's the S&P 500. For the Nasdaq, I was looking for a break and retest of this resistance. Now the stock market opens at 2:30 p.m. The market had already moved by the time I was, looking at the trade, because at this time it was around 1:30. I was waiting for 2:30 and price went in my direction. So I'm looking for a break and retest setup of 24622. If price can maintain above this level and we can see a good entry signal, I will look for short-term buys for at least a 1 to 2 risk to reward. That was my analysis, very brief. I hope it helped. I am looking to grow this YouTube channel, to give as many tips as I can. I'm still learning and growing as a trader every single day. I have not established myself to where I want to be, but I just want to document the journey, and I would appreciate if you can like and subscribe the video and share this video with anyone who you think will benefit from it. Thank you very much.